Hello, I'm Larry Wilson, and welcome to this segment in our study on the 5 essential Bible doctrines. Most Christians have never really stopped to think that there are some essential Bible truths that need to be understood. Most people are just happy with the idea, I'm saved and there's nothing to worry about. What are we having for supper? But you know, God is marvelous. God is big. God is huge in His structures, in His ways, and His love and His justice and His mercy are something that we need to understand. One of the essential Bible doctrines that most Christians today have never really stopped to consider is the perpetuity or the perpetual nature of the Ten Commandments. Of course, Christians refer to the Ten Commandments as an icon. You may remember a few months ago there was a big stew about a justice there in the state of Alabama who had put a monument of the Ten Commandments in the Capitol building of the state there, and the big struggle that all went through. But most Christians don't really stop to think about how important the Ten Commandments are. They think more about the icon than what is commanded in the commandments. In the studio here with me today is Letty Kincaid, and we're discussing these 5 essential Bible doctrines, and we're going to talk about the Ten Commandments, specifically the Sabbath commandment. Letty, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you very much, Larry.
You were raised a Roman Catholic.
Yes.
Roman Catholics go to church on Sunday as the big day.
Yes.
They also attend church on other days as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But when you discovered and first learned about God's seventh day, how did that mess up your life?
Totally. Actually, it was such a joy to discover that it was part of the Ten Commandments. I really never knew that when I was going to the Catholic Church on a regular basis. And to read that the seventh day was a holy day. Larry, I'd gone to church on Sunday, but it certainly wasn't a holy day. So my friends that say, well, Sabbath is Sunday, really Sunday was no different than any other day.
You just went to a meeting.
Yes, exactly.
You just went to a meeting on Sunday, but it really wasn't a holy day because as soon as you got out of church,
yes,
you were off to do whatever you wanted to do.
Yes. So there began my journey to find out, what does God mean by holy and sacred and set apart from all the others?
What's the difference between a holiday and a holiday and a holy day?
I, the letter I, meaning me. It's
holiday is H-O-L-I.
That's right. Yes.
Holiday?
Yes, I choose, I dictate what I want to do on my holiday. Mm-hmm. God's holy day is about God.
So, would you agree that most of the opposition that people have against observing God's holy Sabbath day is that they don't want to give up some free time?
Yes, that is everything, because Saturday is a huge day for sports, for shopping, for social gatherings, for parties, and to choose to truly go be due and to put aside what I want to do so that I can have quality time with God and really close the door to the world for 24 hours truly is a faith decision.
Yes, it is. It's a surrendering
That's
faith.
Right. Yes.
Faith surrenders to the authority of the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Now, let's make it clear that many Christians have had no conviction about Sabbath and its observance. And the beauty about God is that those who haven't had a conviction aren't under condemnation. We understand
Correct.
that?
Yes. Yes.
In other words, to him that knows to do right and does it not, to him it is sin. That's the principle God follows.
Yes. Yes.
However, to him that knows to do right and does it not, you're in trouble.
Right. Well, Larry, I think that one of the biggest problems for Christians is that they think the Ten Commandments are not valid anymore. And so thus the Sabbath, a day of rest, whatever day, is no longer important.
What does the Sabbath do for you? What does the Sabbath bring about for you?
The Sabbath brings a day of joy, of rest from all of my struggles and burdens of the week, and it's a special time for renewal with God. And truly, it has become a joy. Of course, at the very beginning, you have to look at the changes that have to come. There has to be change with the willingness to go and to be and to do and surrendering. Larry, it's an every week thing. It's not just a one-time
It's not
thing.
A once-a-week thing. It's an everyday thing, surrendering.
God interrupts my schedule once a week. So, the brakes have to start to come on around Thursday or Friday to prepare for that day every single week. It's not just a day, it's a whole lifestyle change.
I have, through the years, led many people to understand the Sabbath and had that privilege. And I've got to testify to something that is just amazing. Many people that I have introduced the Sabbath to have lost their jobs. The truth will set you free, Jesus said. Your friends, your family, your job, and your church. Because if you're all about truth, you're moving on to the higher ground ever. Yes. And I want to say, Letty, that I have never known not a single person who has lost and given up their employment in order to observe God's holy day, that God did not give them a better job and a better and more secure situation following. Now, of course, it was scary as all get out, to start with.
Well, Larry, I told you at age 16 I became a Christian and I was convicted of the Sabbath. So here I go for my first job interview, and I was afraid of telling my potential employer that I would not work on Sabbath. And I was shaking and nervous, and so I told him that I was a Sabbath keeper and would not work on Saturday. And God honored my willingness to do that, and he said, "Can you work on Sunday?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "No problem." Boy, was I relieved.
Well, the fourth commandment, this is kind of an interesting thing. Everyone, Christian or non-Christian, would agree that it's wrong to kill, it's wrong to steal, it's wrong to commit adultery, it's wrong to covet, it's wrong to dishonor your parents, It's wrong to bear false witness and be a liar. It's wrong to take God's name in vain. It's wrong to worship idols. It's wrong to do all these things, but it's okay to ignore the Sabbath.
How unfortunate. Yes.
That's a strange thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Let me say a few things about the Sabbath for our viewers to sort of get a little perspective going here. I run into 2 or 3 arguments that people use constantly to justify the breaking of the fourth commandment. The first excuse that's often used, well, we don't know which day of the week is the seventh. It could be any of the days, and how would we know if the seventh day today is the seventh day of the Old Testament? Yes. Well, the answer to that's very simple. Christians worship on Sunday to commemorate the resurrection. And everyone knows that Sunday is the first day of the week, the day of the resurrection.
Right.
You've never heard of Easter Monday. So, we have Christians observing, since Jesus was on earth, Sunday as a day of worship. Right. It started in Rome around 150 A.D. We have the Jews, who have been observing the seventh day since the 1400 B.C. So the Jews have been honoring the seventh day of the week since then, and they know that they are dead on as far as the seventh day of the week is concerned, because in the wilderness there was a big surprise every Sabbath morning. No food.
Yes. Yes.
God proved the synchrony of the seventh day from creation by just withholding food. No manna. So we have the Jews honoring the seventh day. And then around the 6th century A.D., the Muslims began to observe Friday as a holy day because that was the day Muhammad rested, in his escape from Mecca. So we have three religious systems that represent nearly half of the world's population. And these three religious systems are all in conflict with each other, but they all agree on one thing: that Friday is followed by Sabbath, and Sabbath is followed by Sunday.
Yes.
So if there's any doubt in your mind which day of the week is the 7th, check it out. There's no excuse for knowing or discovering which day of the week is the 7th.
Right.
All right, that's the first excuse I get. The second excuse that I often hear is that, the 10 Commandments were nailed to the cross.
That's a very popular one. Yes.
Most Christians use that without realizing what they're saying. So it's okay to commit adultery? No, I'm not saying that, the Christians say. It's not okay to steal. It's not okay to kill. It's not okay to worship idols. It's not okay to dishonor parents. It's not okay to covet. Well, what are you saying? You're saying the law is good and holy. No, I'm saying that the 10 Commandments was nailed to the cross, but 9 of them were renewed. Nonsense.
Yes.
Pure nonsense. I want to show you a text. Let's go to the computer. Hebrews 4 verse 9 says, "There remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from his own work, just as God did from his." Letty, at creation, God created the 7th day. He didn't give it to Jews. He didn't give the Sabbath to the Jews. He gave it to man, to mankind. He gave the Sabbath to Adam and Eve before they sinned. And later he says the Sabbath is a sign of those who honor him.
Yes.
And they rest from their work as he rested from his at the same time. I look at the Sabbath commandment as a command to do nothing at the right time. I like that.
I like that too.
I am blessed by the Sabbath rest. And people who say, the 9 commandments are in the New Testament, but the Sabbath isn't, not true. Paul is very clear here in Hebrews, there remains a Sabbath rest, which God himself instituted at creation. And he made the Sabbath holy. Yes. And he set it apart from the other 6 days. Many people come up to me, and this is the third objection, I keep all 7 days holy.
Right.
And I respond to them, have you told God that he's wrong? Because God, you're violating the commandment. 6 days shalt you labor and do all your work. God says you can't keep them all 7 holy. You're bigger than God then. You must be bigger than God if you're telling God that you've made all 7 days holy. God said that's not the case. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, he said, but the 7th day is a Sabbath. It's a holy day. It doesn't belong to us. We live in a world today of 24/7s. Do you really like that?
No.
Why don't you like that? There's no rest.
You can't keep up. There's no way to keep up.
You wear out. Mm-hmm. You get irritable.
Yes.
You get frayed. Your nerves go to pot.
Yes.
You just stress and anxiety are at all-time. Road rage here in Texas is awful.
Yes.
I see it everywhere. I've seen 3 near misses just in the few days I've been here.
Yes.
The point is, we need rest.
Yes.
We need recovery.
Yes.
We need to be renewed. And that's what Sabbath is really all about.
Yes, it is.
Keeping the Sabbath won't save you. Refraining from adultery won't save you. Refraining from murder won't save you. No. Salvation comes when you surrender to the Spirit. And if the Holy Spirit convicts you, as he convicted me, that Sabbath is God's will, and it's a holy day, and God's word is to be honored, then you have to act on it. If you have no conviction about it, well then, go your way. Go in peace. A lot of people use Romans 14, Letty. Let's talk about that verse and that particular problem. Would you sort of explain what the text is all about? And read a passage there so that we can discuss this.
All right. Romans 14.
Yeah.
Accept him whose faith is weak without passing judgment on disputable matters. That first sentence right there, Larry, is I have had friends to say that means that it doesn't matter what you believe, that if a person doesn't quite get it, it's okay, that there is no...
It's a disputable matter.
Yeah.
It's really
Don't
not,
worry about it.
It's really not a big deal. You're
That's
just
right.
majoring in minors here
Yes.
and making the Sabbath out
Yes.
to be a big thing when in reality,
Yes.
you know, it's a disputable matter. So
Yes.
don't get all upset.
Right. What you eat, what day you worship on.
Yeah.
Let's not stretch that one day could be more sacred than another.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go down to
Yeah.
that point. Get the next sentence, if you would, there.
All right. One man's faith allows him to eat everything, but another man, whose faith is weak, eats only vegetables.
Well, what does faith have to do with vegetables? Let me explain and set this up for you. In Rome, Christianity was growing and developing, and new converts were coming out of their heathen ways and pagan ways into the church. And some Roman converts had been worshiping different gods, and some of the meat that was available in the marketplace had been offered up to these gods as a sacrifice or of appeasement. And then this meat was then sold on the open market for consumption.
Right.
And that's how the temple got money to operate and to do its business. Well, many of the Roman converts, coming away from the worshiping of these false gods into the worship of the living God, they didn't want to be eating meat like they had formerly been eating meat. It was the problem of going back to where I've come from. Mm-hmm. For example, one time we were at a camp situation and had a camp meeting, and we were I needed some volunteers to help get the lunch ready. And this one lady came up to me and she said, "You know, I lost my job at Kmart for keeping the Sabbath because I wouldn't work. And now you're asking for volunteers to work on Sabbath to put the food together." She was young. She was, you know, it was hard for her to see that work, there are different types of work.
Yes.
The farmer has to milk his cows 7 days a week. God does not excuse that. In fact, the priests Jesus said, they work on Sabbath, but without guilt, because they're there to minister to the people. The Sabbath is the toughest day for the priests in Israel's time.
Yes.
So in Rome, this experience and this problem with the new converts was causing controversy. And Paul says, look, this is a disputable matter. If in your faith you don't want to eat meat that's been offered up to idols, you know, I understand that. So just eat the vegetables. When we get together for potluck, just eat the vegetables.
Right.
In that way you will not be contaminated with food that's been offered to idols. But Paul then says on the other coin, hey, I know an idol's nothing, fill my plate up.
Yeah.
It didn't bother him, see.
Right.
Now, this comes down to the middle of the verse,
Yes.
where one man considers one day more sacred than another. Another man considers every day alike.
Yes.
See, he who regards one day as special does so to the Lord. He who eats meat eats to the Lord, for he gives thanks to God, and he abstains, does so to the Lord, and gives thanks to God. What he's saying here is that many of the early Jewish converts wanted to continue to celebrate the Passover and the various feasts.
Right.
In fact, a number of Christians today do the same thing. The point here is that Paul is saying, look, this is disputable. We're not talking about the absolute of the Ten Commandments. We're talking about the social culture and how conformity and coming away from the baggage of what we've had and where we're going and rising to holier ground in our Christian stand. It's a struggle.
Yes, it is.
Oh, listen, the Sabbath topic is a topic that's huge. And I have a lot of stuff on the web that you can read. And I hope that you will begin examining this topic, particularly because it applies to the end time. The subject of worship will figure front and center in the days to come. And in fact, that's going to be part of our next discussion on the final essential Bible doctrine, the second coming. Well, we'll see you in just a minute. May God bless.